This is shocking. 88-year-old woman wakes up in her coffin in a shocking incident in the Czech Republic. An 88-year-old woman was almost buried alive after being mistakenly declared dead. As funeral workers were preparing her body, they noticed something chilling. She was breathing. Moments later, she opened her eyes inside the coffin. She was immediately rushed to the hospital. Authorities have launched an investigation into how this terrifying mistake happened. Now let's deep dive into this AI podcast.
Okay, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into some genuinely wild stories, the kind that really make you double take.
Yeah, these are pretty intense.
We're talking about accounts that come straight from the sources, detailing this terrifying scenario. I mean, it sounds like fiction, but it's absolutely real. Waking up in, or just moments away from being sealed inside, a coffin.
It's a chilling thought, isn't it? And we've pulled together material that brings this nightmare scenario into sharp focus, drawing on real accounts reported from places like the Czech Republic and Bolivia.
Right.
These aren't myths, they're experiences someone actually lived through.
And our mission, really, in this deep dive is to unpack exactly what happened in these specific cases, understand the totally different circumstances that led to them, and explore what these sources reveal about things like, medical accuracy, cultural beliefs.
And honestly, what we even mean by death, it touches on some fundamental things.
Exactly, because this isn't just about, strange news headlines.
Right. It's about hitting pause on the bizarre story and really looking at the human vulnerability involved, the incredible, almost unbelievable twists life can take.
Mm-hmm.
And what these stories make you think about trust, about belief, about that fragile line between being alive and being gone.
Okay, so let's unpack this first one. It comes from Pilsen, Czech Republic, an 88-year-old woman.
Yeah.
When I first saw this in the sources, it felt like something straight out of a horror movie script, but the reports are crystal clear. It's real.
So what happened initially?
Well, her partner found her unresponsive one morning. He couldn't wake her up at all. So naturally, emergency services were called immediately.
Okay, standard procedure so far. But this is the precise moment, the critical turning point where everything goes terribly wrong. Mm-hmm. Medical professionals arrived on the scene. They examined her.
Yeah.
And a coroner officially declared her deceased. Pronounced her dead right there.
Mm.
And that declaration, that set a whole chain of events in motion, just as you'd expect.
Exactly. Once that declaration was made, her body was released, handed over to a funeral service. And this is where that sort of macabre twist you mentioned unfolds. It's almost unbelievable what happened next.
It really is. According to the reports we looked at, as the funeral workers began preparing her body, and some accounts even say as they were placing her into the coffin, they noticed something profoundly unusual. The details vary slightly in the sources. Some mention her eyes suddenly opening while she was in the coffin. Others, that the staff first spotted her breathing, a movement, something.
Wow. But regardless of the exact moment, the stark reality just hit them hard. The person they were preparing for burial was very much alive. Can you even imagine that moment?
It must have been absolutely terrifying for everyone involved.
Sure.
Just shocking.
Totally.
So once that realization struck, emergency services were called back immediately. Ambulance spokesman Martin Uchapan actually confirmed their operations center got a call in the very early hours, and crews were dispatched straight away.
Back to the same place?
Right. They ensured her basic life functions on site, stabilized her, and got her transported to a medical facility. And the latest reports, they say she's actually recovering well, which is frankly astonishing after all that.
It really, really is. And the aftermath, according to the sources, is pretty significant. Local police have launched a formal investigation into what happened.
Yeah, you'd expect.
Police spokeswoman Michaela Rain-Lavad noted they are examining all the circumstances and the legal qualification of the incident is pending. This absolutely includes scrutinizing the coroner's actions and whether proper protocols were followed in declaring her dead. The company associated with that coroner, they've issued an apology and promised disciplinary actions.
Well, what this source really highlights is how critical, how absolutely vital those final checks are. I mean, how can such a fundamental error, misdiagnosing death even happen in this day and age?
It's a scary question.
It really underscores the absolute necessity of thorough, standardized protocols for confirming death. Because an error here isn't just a mistake, it's literally life or death. And events like this, rare as they hopefully are, they deeply shake public trust in the very systems we rely on, especially at our most vulnerable moments.
Wow. Wow. That Czech story is chilling enough on its own.
Definitely.
But, not all these terrifying near burials are down to medical errors. This next one from Bolivia, reported back in 2022, involving a 30-year-old man, Victor Hugo Maica Alvarez, it's something else entirely.
Yeah, quite different.
His experience also involved waking up trapped in a coffin, but his explanation for how he got there is shocking in a completely different way.
Indeed. Alvarez claims he was used as a human offering. A silu.
A sulu. Okay, tell us about that context from the sources. What is that?
Right. So the sources connect his claim to a specific cultural context in El Alto, Bolivia. They mention the Mother Earth Festival, which honors Pachamama, as the Andean goddess of earth and fertility.
Pachamama, right.
And this festival includes ritual offerings known as salu. Now, the sources note these can range from things like cocoa leaves and candy, maybe cigarettes, all the way up to more significant offerings like live animals or sheep fetuses.
Okay.
And while human sacrifices are widely believed to be ancient history, confined to the distant past, the sources report that some locals insist they still occur, secretly.
Wow, okay. And Alvarez's personal story, as he tells it in the sources, seems to align with this belief he holds. He says he'd been out partying the night before the festival started, drinking with friends, and then just blacked out completely, doesn't remember anything after a certain point.
And then he regained consciousness, finding himself trapped inside a coffin. But what adds another layer to his account, according to the sources, is that he wasn't where he'd been partying anymore.
Where was he?
He found himself some 50 miles away in a place called Achacachi. He described the experience, saying he initially thought he was just in his bed, wanted to get up, maybe go to the bathroom, but couldn't move, completely trapped. It was when he pushed against the coffin lid that he managed to break a glass panel it apparently had.
Oh, there was glass.
Seems so. And that's how he claims he got out. He pushed, broke the glass, and managed to escape.
And he is absolutely adamant, according to the sources we looked at, that he was buried alive as part of one of these claimed underground ritual offerings to Pachamama without his knowledge, without his consent, just taken.
That's his claim.
Yeah.
And the sources also note the reaction he got when he tried to report this incident to the police.
Well, what did they say?
They reportedly dismissed his claims entirely, essentially suggested he was simply too drunk, that his story wasn't credible because of the alcohol involved. He couldn't be taken seriously.
So you have these two incredibly different accounts, just starkly different.
Yeah, two people, same terrifying situation, waking up trapped in a coffin, but wildly different explanations for how they got there.
One attributed to a clear medical error, which is now being investigated.
Right, systems failed there, apparently.
And the other, a claim rooted in belief about ancient, maybe secretly practiced customs, and reportedly dismissed by the authorities.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And deeply unsettling to look at these side by side.
It really is. If we kind of connect this to the bigger picture, both stories drawn straight from our sources, they just highlight how easily that line between life and death can blur. Whether it's due to a modern mistake in procedure, a breakdown in the system, or, as reported in the Bolivian case, these claims tied to ancient customs. People can find themselves terrifyingly close to or even in their grave when they absolutely shouldn't be.
Exactly. The core shared experience is profound, isn't it? In both cases, the person was presumed dead or, treated as non-living, only to be discovered alive and find themselves trapped in that ultimate symbol of finality, the coffin.
Yeah.
As the sources underscore, the dead don't always stay dead, and sometimes they aren't even dead to begin with. It really raises an important question about our definitions and the systems we rely on, doesn't it?
For the Czech case, this really just drives home the critical importance of rigorous, thorough medical examination before anyone is declared deceased. It seems like such a basic thing, but...
It's a non-negotiable step that failed here, according to the sources. Absolutely critical.
And the Bolivian case, as it's reported, it raises questions about, the intersection of cultural practices, belief systems, and whether these kinds of claims, however outlandish they might sound to some, could actually intersect with reality in potentially life-threatening ways for some individuals. It's a difficult area.
It really is. And these aren't just, bizarre headlines you scroll past on your phone feed. They kind of force us to think about fundamental human vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
About our trust in the systems and the professionals designed to protect us, and also about the powerful role of belief, whether that's belief in medical science and its protocols, or beliefs in cultural traditions and their potential darker edges, as was claimed in the Alvarez case.
This deep dive has certainly taken us to a chilling place, exploring that unexpected, terrifying space between life and death, as chronicled in these sources, it's a stark reminder that sometimes reality is stranger and, frankly, more terrifying than any fiction you could write.
Definitely. And maybe as we wrap up, here's something for you, the listener, to consider, building on these accounts. In a world just constantly bombarded with information, with claims and counterclaims, how do we navigate stories and beliefs, especially those that touch on something as fundamental as life and death, tradition, and who or what we ultimately trust?
That's a great point to leave things on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into these truly astonishing accounts. We hope it's giving you plenty to think
Should
about.
coroners and emergency responders be legally held accountable for declaring someone dead without a second opinion? What do you think on this? Comment it. Thanks.